Hi, welcome back to an unusual TerranScapes video. This video is taking place at the Unplugged GT here in Connecticut, and after a full day of people gaming and a full day of me shooting photos of the event, of armies, I have shot so many photos today and video interviews of people. I have grown to acknowledge my camera as a new companion. But in any case, I'm a little punchy, it's late, but I think this is my best chance to actually shoot a video to talk about the new buildings that I did. These new buildings were done with a completely new technique than I've done before, and I really wanted to get a sort of feedback, if you will, from the community. I think it offers some really nice improvements over some of the things I've been doing in the past. And of course, you know me, it could be better. So what I'd like to do is, even in the chaos that is going on here, is bring you up close. We'll take a look at this. The white backdrop is full of crud from moving display boards all over it, and I only have paper up half the wall, and so, you know, we're gonna wing it, but how fresh is that? So let's take a look at the building, and I'll go over a little bit about how I built it, about how I painted it, and see basically what you think of it. All right. So actually, I was just interrupted for about 20 minutes talking actually about this building, as well as the theory behind miniature painting as it relates to washes, which I've done here, and it was actually kind of a fun conversation, but more interruptions may occur, so expect this to maybe be a interrupted video. But in any case, let's talk briefly about the building in terms of how it was constructed. These were made, each of the sides was made from a mold. I got a railroad mold for making like a retaining wall, and the mold is about, let me get both hands in here, it's about yay high, and maybe it was about yay wide. So what I did is I cast the mold using a fair amount of resin, and then I could slice it up, right? And then I could take each of those slices, angle them, and make the full hexagonal structure for the building. Then I took bits of those and I cut those also using the same basically casts, little bits of it, to make the the archer outcroppings, if you will. And we're going to talk about some of the things I'd like to change in this in a second, but this was really done for the Unplugged GT and not for a customer, so I felt like I could take some liberties, and really needed to get this done in time. I actually did two of these buildings, one on a slightly smaller base. The rock, this is part of that new rock technique that I've been talking about. So this was cast as a thin sheet. If you haven't seen that video, I will put a link up in the corner here. And I'm impressed, as late as it is, and as tired as I am, and as many beers as I've had, that I'm actually remembering all these things. So, kudos to me. I don't do that very often. So basically, I tried something very different with this rock base in that I cut this as a single piece, and I formed the entire sheet around this as one solid piece. In retrospect, that was actually probably kind of silly, because on the other building, which is not shown here but looks very similar, I used individual slices of the rock casts and then just joined them where I needed to, and that actually ended up being easier than this and really looks just about as good, perhaps as good. But I wanted to see if I could do this as a single cast, and actually it worked out. And it kind of shows the ability of this kind of rock technique in terms of what kinds of shapes you can really form with it if you have enough patience and dedication. The inside then got expanded foam to back it up. And you can see here I used a wire mesh as a guide. I made that as a frame to help shape actually the rocks as I was bending them. And then once that was done, I backfilled it with some more foam just to fill it in, make it all rigid, give it some structural support. For the building pieces themselves, because I had cast them in a thicker plastic, I didn't really need to reinforce them. I got the door from a friend who had some doors left over for some GW products, some kind of like Fortress or something like that. And I actually tried to paint the doors in a similar way that I did to the stones, and it really didn't take very well. I'm okay with the doors. It's for the GT. I would have done more work if it was for a customer, but I kind of just wanted to play with it in terms of doing washes and that sort of idea. So let's talk about the, and I had a separate mold to do this kind of cobblestone roofing, and that's what actually makes the top of the roof as well. And forgive me if some of this is going to end up a little out of focus and the lighting is a little weird. Luckily, I brought my lights with me because I knew I was going to shoot photos. But, you know, we're in what we would call compromised situation here. So, basically, this utilizes the new painting technique, which I believe I have described in a previous video, of rubbing in black tempera paint. It's a powder, right, a form of the tempera before you add water to it. You rub it in, then you wipe it off, wash it off with a wet cloth, and then you apply washes to the stone or to whatever surface to add those colors back in. One of the things that I think is the most remarkable about this technique is the incredibly nice, I don't know how else to describe it, shading that it gives. It provides a very gradual shading on the stones that I haven't really achieved or seen many other people achieve with a different technique. Of course, if you've seen this with a different technique, let me know. You know me, I always want to learn. But I really was struck by the feel that this gives the stone. It breathes life into it in ways that I have not seen most terrain makers create in the past. Once I had done all the washing off of the tempera, I then went in with washes to pick out the individual stones. I wasn't going to do this, and then I thought, oh, it'll just make it look so much better. And don't ask me how much time I spent on this. A lot of time was learning, though, and not actual production time, because I had to go back over and do steps over and over again because I didn't like them, of course. So, one of the things that I learned about that as a little tip, and it actually relates to these roof pieces, which I'm not happy about, is that the washing off of the paint, you actually need to be pretty aggressive because you need to bring the white back. Oh, I don't know if I mentioned, but it's base coated with gesso. I think I've mentioned that again in a previous video. I can't remember. It's late. But washing it with the gesso, base coating with the gesso gives you a very firm bond that is a bright white. And so you can bring out those white highlights by applying a lot of pressure, actually, to when you're wiping off the tempera paint. And in fact, as I was painting along, and you can see it in the rocks along here as well, once I got to a certain stage and I felt like I had removed a lot of those highlights, I then went back in and actually wiped off some of the paint, and it sort of gives the effect of a dry brush when in fact it's really exposing the underneath white. This was a compromise choice for the rocks particularly, because I really felt like I had lost a lot of the highlights and I just wanted to give them a sharp pop. And so wiping off those edges just helped knock that off and just at least give you a little bit of the texture that the stones actually have. So before we wrap up some of this discussion, I just want to talk about these pieces here. This is a cobblestone mold. Cast those as thin sheets of resin, right? Filed them, glued them, stick them in, assemble it. When I was wiping off the tempera paint, the texture here is much more shallow than the actual walls themselves. And what I ended up doing really was wiping off a little too much of the tempera. You can see here a little bit more actually remained. You can see here, you know, some spots, and you can see it, whoa, lights. You can see it here, and I'm hoping this is in focus. In fact, I'll check and see. Looks good. That you can see more of the actual texture of the stone captured because most of the tempera remained, mainly because, and you can see it in the corners, I hope you can see that here, because it was actually quite hard to wipe it out of this interior surface. So, in hindsight, thinking about it again, what I could have done was go back in and actually reapply the tempera black shading and then lightly wipe it off. And just be careful to keep it in this one area. And I think it would have improved the definition that these pieces have. And when I began washing it, I just felt like it was just really flat, So towards the end, I don't know if you heard that, they're playing Triumph and Treachery for Warhammer, and something good just happened. What I ended up doing then was really aggressively wiping off the high spots just to bring back some contrast, but on the whole, this is, in my opinion, terrible, and will be improved the next time. A lot of learning, though. This is exactly why I wanted to do these buildings, is to try this technique out. I've got 3 different textures to work with in terms of how to apply the paint, the colors that I can choose from, the effect that it produces. And I learned so much from it, and it's people who always ask me, well, I can't ever do something like this or whatever. It's like, you know what? The first time you do it, it's not going to come out great. Second time you do it, comes out better. This, I feel pretty good about. This, terrible. This, okay. I think I got something going there, but it definitely could be improved. I'd like to vary the colors a little bit more within the stonework, but I also wanted it much darker than the building to try to set it off a little bit, but utilize some of the colors that were in the building stones as a foundation for the rock work to try to tie it all together. I don't think it was completely effective, but that was the motivation behind it. So that gives you a little bit of an overview of basically how I built this building and how I painted it. All of this was new to me, and to say that I'm excited about this technique is an understatement. I think this stonework has so much potential, and I know that it will only get better as time goes on. So very nice technique, and I'm redundant in saying I'm excited about it. So that gives you a very unconventional look at a recent project that I did for my gaming group for a Warhammer Grand Tournament. I just want to give myself slight props for actually pulling this video off. It's got to be well past midnight at this point, but I know that tomorrow I won't get a chance, and I won't have these buildings back at home to be able to shoot a video of them going forward, and I felt like it's a real important milestone in terms of learning a new technique that I wanted to share and give you sort of a sense of where I'm starting, going forward. I am kind of open to suggestions, really kind of seeking if you have, particularly if you've seen other stonework, right, that you think kind of has this feel, maybe it's done a little differently, new technique, I would love to hear about that. If you feel like you have seen work that picks out stone colors, amongst a wall that's done a little differently, I'd like to see that. It's not really typical for me to be doing a lot of this picking out of individual stones, but it's something I'll be doing going forward, obviously. So, I'm open to suggestions, other projects that people have done, that sort of idea. Feel free. Comments and questions are always welcome down below. I really appreciate them, and I was even mentioning it to somebody here at the GT today that I really view my YouTube viewers as a resource. You're not just viewers, but if 1,000 people watch my videos and 2 in 1,000 people know something that I don't, that's a big asset to me. So I appreciate you taking the time to watch and taking the time to comment. Of course, if I can, when I edit this, right, I'll have that little thing in the corner here that says Q&A and Twitter and Patreon and all that stuff. If you have any questions about any of that stuff, leave them in the questions and comments down below. Remember, though, when I'm on Twitter, I do not reply to tweets. I've had some people who've tweeted, and it kind of sounded like, oh, maybe he's going to... And then I don't, because I got so much content to respond to already. But if you see me on Twitter and you want to know more about something I have tweeted, that's what I call it, then send me an email or, put it in a video. Any of that's fine, and I'm happy to respond to those. So thank you once again for joining me. I really appreciate it, especially on an oddball night like this. And stay tuned to the channel, because I am going to put together a little slideshow of some of the photos that I've taken of the event, as well as some of the armies. I have dragged over probably 10 or maybe 15 armies over into this is my little photo studio here, to get some really nice shots of them. And I think no matter what game you play, no matter what level of artistry you're at, I think there's something there that you might enjoy. So hopefully you'll come back and join me, and that's when you will see me again in another TerranScapes video.